Hi guys and welcome back to the KSP. Last episode we returned Jeb and Bob from the surface of Minmus. We then immediately began construction on our new long-term habitation station called the Van Allen Station. We got to the point where all the Kerbals aboard the station had a habitation timer above 1 year. We also sent 3 new scan satellites around Minmus, the Mun and Kerbin to scan for ore and biomes. This episode, we're going to try and send our Van Allen station out around Minmus, where it can do some useful science for us. Once we're there, we'll try and recover the lander that we left there last episode, and perhaps we'll be able to reuse it and refuel it with the fuel that we bring out there. So to begin with, we've got to launch our Van Allen booster model. This is what's going to attach to our Van Allen station and boost us out to the orbit of Minmus. It's super heavy once it's full of fuel, so we're going to have to use the actual transfer engine to get us into orbit in the first place. Those massive round fuel tanks don't look that big, but they actually contain a huge amount of fuel. Now obviously most of this launch is done in 4 times time acceleration, just to save you the trouble of watching what is pretty much a bog standard launch. You can see I didn't actually use the fancy camera angles for this launch, just because I thought it wasn't, significant enough to warrant it. You see there we lose something, a decoupler maybe or something, but everything goes as planned, and we need those little side-mounted engines to give us the thrust necessary to get into orbit, seeing as we haven't yet unlocked the mainsails. So from there it's pretty trivial, just getting a rendezvous with the Van Allen station. Nothing too complicated, so I've cut most of it out. We could just come in here for our docking. Now I haven't actually added any sort of reaction control system onto the booster module, so it's a docking simply done by pointing the 2 ships together and thrusting a bit using the mechanical jeb to hold the orientation or attitude of the ship that we're trying to dock to, namely the Van Allen station. And then we use the RCS engines from the Van Allen station to thrust in and get that docking. It's a pretty simple procedure. We bounce off there a bit, but looks like we come in a bit slower this time and we managed to get the docking, and that's us. Now I haven't yet unlocked the struts that you can get as a part of the KIS, or the KAS, Kerbal Attachment System. So I'm slightly concerned about how this is going to wobble and maybe take itself apart, but we're just going to have to see. So you can see here I get out one of the engineers to take apart some of the unnecessary parts that we used for actually getting these solar struts out there, just to lower the part count a bit and make sure our FPS is usable, because you see we're dropping a bit there. And I'm actually surprised at how well this is running given all the parts. You can see here I'm trying to attach a normal strut, and it looks like it's going to work, but then it just disappears. So I don't know if it's technically attached, or maybe it's just not showing up at all. Anyhow, we have a look at our life support, and it looks like everybody's got a habitation of over a year. And we also brought up a bit of extra food, you'll see on the booster module there. We've got another a packet of supplies. So we should be good for well over a year now with everybody's hab timers, and we can always resupply the station. So you can see there I select control here from the probe to make sure we're pointing in the right direction with respect to the booster engine, because that's pretty important. And I don't know if I do it now or later, but I turn off the gimbal for the engine, so that we don't tear ourselves apart because there's no supporting struts. You can see here we're just getting a nice cinematic shot of us boosting out to Minmus. The transfer is actually really quick because we're using that mainsail engine. The efficiency isn't quite there, but I figured for such a large spacecraft it was probably worth it. I also don't really have nuclear engines yet, and I probably won't for a while, so we're going to have to use conventional rocket engines, which is obviously not very efficient, but we're just going to have to deal with it. And see here we get a nice close approach. Now my aim is to rendezvous with that the lander that we left in orbit last episode, So you can see here I try and get my periaps around Minmus, pretty close to intercepting that orbit, and on the same plane and rotation. Now while we warp out to Minmus, I'm just going to do some scanning of the Mun, because the way the keythane mod is working at the moment, I'm not actually able to like scan when out of focus. I have to be like focused on the ship to be able to scan the body, which is just super annoying, but I've just got to deal with it. And you can see here we get our notification from Kerbal Alarm Clock that we can change over, and we're changing sphere of influence. Oh, no. Looks like we're just going to do some correction maneuvers on our other scan satellite that is going out to Minmus. Yeah, I was wrong. So we're just going to burn and make sure we come into a polar orbit around Minmus so we can obviously scan the entire surface. Yeah, I forgot about this one actually. But yeah, if you remember from last episode, we had 3 different scan satellites that we launched, all the JS Blueford type, and they have keythane scanners and biome scanners and the basic resource scanner, so we can get a bit of science off them. So now that we're back at the Van Allen station, we can start to do some correction maneuvers and make sure we come into the right orbit. I think this is a correction maneuver about halfway up our transfer to Minmus that we have to do, and it's only about 30 meters per second, but it will have a vast impact on where we wind up in orbit around Minmus. So we're just warping in down to our periapsis, and I decide at this point that I want a high orbit around Minmus, just because the station consumes so much electric charge that if we're on the dark side we run out very quickly. So the higher the orbit I have, the less time we spend in the shadow of the body, if you know what I mean. So by selecting a higher orbit, I can ensure that the time spent in the shadow of Minmus is as little as possible. Now, for that reason, I'm not able to actually rendezvous with a lander, so I decide to send out Jeb instead, using just his reaction control system on his spacesuit, and there's actually enough delta V there to do some pretty significant maneuvers around a low gravity body like Minmus, and I'm going to use his reaction control system, tricky as it is, to try and rendezvous with the lander, get on board, and I think it still has enough fuel to be able to make it back and rendezvous with the Van Allen station. So you can see here, after a couple of attempts actually, I get lined up and I get the intersect pretty good, and we're just warping in, and I can't actually see where the thing is, because I still have not unlocked the ability to have the marker show up when actually in like focus view, so I have to rely on the map to see where it is with respect to me. But it finally slides into view there from a completely unexpected angle, and we managed to maneuver up to it and get on board, as you can see here. There we go. And as you can see, we still have a ton of fuel left over actually. I'm sure we could have done another landing on Minmus before that, but I guess we didn't. And we just get that rendezvous with the Van Allen station. We just burn out to it, and it's a pretty simple maneuver. We're slightly off the plane, so there's quite a lot of relative velocity, but it's nothing to worry about. And Jeb can handle it fine. And once again, I didn't put reaction control thrusters onto this craft, because I don't think I even had them unlocked when I launched the Von Braun, because of course this is a relic from the Von Braun mission to Minmus. So we're definitely going to have to do a refit. I was thinking you can get these inflatable tanks with a part of the USI mod, and I was thinking that I would take off these detachable tanks and put on the inflatable ones instead, because they have more fuel storage capacity. There we go. You can see that we get a nice little cinematic shot of our space station flying past there, and it's now fully complete. With the lighting turned on, it does look slightly like a seedy space motel. It's not exactly the look I was going for. I don't know, it just looks a bit more neon than I expected. I was expecting a kind of cool industrial blue, I don't know, but it did not turn out the way I expected. So for the most part, I think I'm going to have those those lights turned off. Anyway, we get our scientist into the lander, the von Braun lander, and we transfer the fuel across, which is of course a nightmare because we've got 6 separate fuel tanks on each side of the von Braun lander. And we use our new map of Minmus to select a landing site that's near an anomaly. Now, I've heard that the anomaly, if you land near it, will unlock a tech node, but I'm not actually sure if that's true in 1.2.2, so I've got to inquire about that. I get the feeling it isn't, because I've visited an anomaly before with my rover, and it's not actually done anything for me. Anyhow, now that we're refueled, we can start to head down to the surface of Minmus and see if we can grab a bit more science. And this time, instead of sending it right back, we're going to process it in our laboratory and hopefully get a 3-fold return. And so you can see we're just coming down there, and because Minmus is obviously rotating, I don't get the landing site lined up perfectly, but I'm pretty close. And you can see there that all the writing is acting up, so I have to reload. It's been doing that a couple of times now, actually. I'm not sure what the problem there is. Some kind of strange bug, but after I reload, it obviously sorts itself out pretty nicely. So we're just coming down there, and we spot the anomaly right off the bat. It's pretty obvious. I didn't actually know that the monoliths were coloured green on different planets. I mean, I'm not sure, but they're all... I thought on Kerbin they were all black, and certainly on the Scott Manley videos I used to watch, they're all black on the moon. Maybe they've changed it recently. Yeah, so we can just grab a bit of science, get all the surface samples taken, and then I think it's time to head over to the anomaly and see what it is. Maybe get some cool Instagram photos. Yeah, so we're just gonna store all our experiments in the craft first, and then we're gonna head over. Looking very ominous in the distance there. I don't know, I don't think I like it how it blends in with the surface. I think it should look a bit more kind of... I don't know, I think the black slate is really cool. It's kind of a nod to 2001: A Space Odyssey, I think. You know, the bit where the monkeys are like jumping up and down in front of the monolith. So you see there, we get a nice shot of our scientist, and there's no extra science to be had on top of the monolith, unfortunately. So I guess it's only a feature in 1.3 that you're able to... Yeah, I don't know how it works. Maybe it does unlock a node. I'll have to check in the research center. So you can see now I somehow managed to lose where my spacecraft is, because once again I don't have the ability to like see the tag in this view. So I'm completely lost, and I have no idea where my spacecraft is. So I go into the map view and eventually set it as a target and managed to navigate my way back from there, and it looks like it was embarrassingly close, and I must have just flown right across it. Anyhow, we have some trouble getting in, because I think the craft is actually sliding down the hill slightly, and we eventually managed to get in. Now, I decided that I didn't actually have enough fuel to do another landing. Well, I guess I probably could have, or I could have flown over with my EVA pack, but for some reason it was doing a bug where I was sliding down the hill, and I wasn't able to activate my EVA pack. I didn't put that on camera, but it was super annoying. I spent at least half an hour trying to figure out how to like get back to my ship, just because I was like sliding down the hill uncontrollably. So we do a very inefficient burn to get back to the Van Allen station, because I don't really want to be hanging around. And we've got the thrust as well, the Delta V rather. So why not? You can see there we're just bringing our rendezvous across. We're burning almost straight up the way, which is super inefficient, but we can afford it, I think. In the end, it looks like we've basically used up all our fuel once we get in close to the Van Allen station. So it was actually quite a close thing. I'll maybe need to think about being more efficient next time. We do, however, have an absolutely massive amount of fuel in those big orange tanks, and we can essentially run these missions indefinitely, unless we obviously break something on the surface of Minmus, in which case we're probably stuck there. But yeah, we can just refuel, and compared to the capacity of these small tanks on the lander, the massive fuel tanks just have so much that we can probably run this mission about 6 or 7 times. So I'm not really that concerned about fuel efficiency. And obviously we're going to have to send up a refit package at some point to this lander to add some extra fuel tanks onto it, increase its range, and possibly a reaction control system as well. Just so we can make maneuvering into the station easier, because obviously when we grow out the station a bit, we're going to want to be able to, well, it's going to be super inert, we're not going to be able to like turn it that easily. Anyhow, I'm getting ahead of myself. These are all things that we can do next episode. Cheers for watching, guys, and I'll see you again next episode.